Hi everyone, I'm Amy Stevens, and I'd like to share a devotional with you today that I hope gives you some peace and maybe some recourse from an anxious or stressful situation. I saw something the other day online, and it was a picture of a woman who had grocery bags all over her. She had them up each arm, around her neck, kind of dragging some behind her. And the caption said, "What if we were as motivated in other areas of our life as we are when we're trying to get from the car to the house in one trip?" And I know I've done that. I've done some uh, ridiculous things to try to hurry up a task like that, maybe that is not so fun or something cut some corners. But it is interesting when I started to think about what that kind of motivation and focus would do in other areas of life. And I began thinking about the word carry as we're carrying things. I thought about the word carry in the context of maybe having a child on your hip and in your arms, where you're forced to do a lot of things one-handed. And as you're doing these things one-handed, they're probably not done as well as they would be if you were using both of your hands, but you're carrying a child, so it's perfectly excusable and understandable, and you just do what you need to do because your focus is on the right thing. But if we change that scenario, and instead of the child, we have a phone perhaps, or an iPad or something in our hands, and we're looking at that thing while we're trying to do things over here and we're not being very effective, we would all suggest that that probably doesn't make sense, because that's not using our time wisely and our energy as wisely as we could, and we're carrying something that doesn't need to be carried. So I encourage you to think about these things in both this literal physical sense, but also in terms of a figurative sense. How does this relate to what we carry in our hearts and in our minds? Our anxieties, our worries, what are you carrying that is a quick fix idea in your head, something you're just trying to get through so you can do it all in one trip? But maybe it's not really doable in that kind of circumstance. What are you waiting patiently for, or possibly impatiently for, that's causing you anxiety, that's stressing you out and keeping you from sleeping perhaps at night? What are you carrying that distracts you, that isn't important, but you realize you are carrying it, and so it doesn't need to be carried? And then finally, what are you carrying that's not yours to carry, where you're holding something up that is someone else's, but you've decided you're trying to solve this for them, but it really wasn't given to you? That's another kind of carrying that wears us out emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And that's the kind of carrying I'm talking about when I encourage you to think about your baggage, so to speak, what you're carrying. What category does yours fall into? There's a category I didn't mention that you may be thinking of, and I want to address that because sometimes there are burdens and responsibilities that are given to us, and they're very difficult. Maybe a sick family member, or trouble in some way in your home or at your work or in your church, but it's your responsibility and it's something you're supposed to carry. And that's a different kind of carrying that has a reason, but still has an unhealthy way to do it. And the unhealthy way to do it is no different than me trying to pick up 500 pounds physically. I can't do it. I also can't pick up the equivalent of 500 pounds emotionally, or I sure can't do it for very long. And so it's at that place that I would encourage you to run to Jesus. In Matthew 11, we're told in verses 28 through 30, something you've heard many times, but in this context, let's think about what that thing is for you. When Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." The words rest and light are so freeing when you've been carrying something emotionally, spiritually, mentally, or physically. And so I encourage you today to think through for yourself what categories things fall in, what you can let go, and what you need to run to Jesus for help with. And as you do that, I know that when we come to the end of ourselves, that is where we find Jesus, and that's where the possibilities are endless. Highpoint, I love you guys, and if you have anything you'd like to share with me, I'd love to hear it as always. Just email me, amy@hpf.org. Otherwise, know that I'm praying for you, and I love you. See you soon.